protocol that we've had in previous sessions where we'll silence our phones and then begin in prayer. Let us pray. Father, in the name of Jesus, we pause first to give you glory, honor, and praise. Lord, as we gather to make decisions for the betterment of the students of Alabama, let every decision be one that is made with wisdom, clarity, beneficial, that will be beneficial to the students. We pray for every person that's here. We lift up those employees that are down in Mobile. I pray that the sessions that have been planned for them will benefit all of the teachers that are there, the support staff, everyone that's there for one common purpose, and that is to educate the students in Alabama. We ask all of this in your son Jesus' name. Amen. 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 At this time, do we have #teach? If you all would come up. Excuse me.
I'll just introduce them. Let y'all have a handout, don't you? Let me just say, of course, we have a very small group today. Some of our folks were coming back to be here, so y'all are alone, I know, because they're stuck in Mobile. Not stuck in Mobile, but on the other side of the bridge. So #teach, just to remind all of you, and you do have some information also in Assembly, but this group came before you. You've not voted on them yet. So I want to clarify that. We've had 3 groups to come before you. One of them you approved, one of them was not approved, and one of them was the #teach never got to a vote. And so they have since had some information. They can clarify, you clarify anything I mess up, but I just want to remind folks. So what happened was they were anticipating a Cape visit at the time. And I think many board members, not to speak for board members, but I think many board members were concerned about even having a vote before the Cape visit. And so the motion is basically still out there. It never was acted upon. So I guess there was no motion. So there was never a motion and a second. So that's why it's still a live matter before the board. What I asked of them, I have not had a chance to talk to these 2 great folks since then, but I've talked to one of the representatives and I've said, I would rather they not come back before the board until after their Cape visit. So they've now had the Cape visit, so we invited them to come back to give you an update, answer any questions, and then I will leave it up to the board and our #teach folks, Dr. Chestnut, about whether you want to vote on this in August or you want to wait. And the only reason I mentioned waiting, it's not that I'm trying to delay things, but as you all look around the room and see, a majority of the boards are not even in the room. And so I think that after today, it would be if others said, well, since I was not able to be there, I don't want to vote, then we could end up in the same situation we were in before, where there's not enough people to move something forward. Even if the majority wanted to move it forward, but didn't want to, because of the situation. So, not saying that would happen, but I think we need to think about whether it's best to move in August or best to move in September. Of course, it'll be up to the board whether they want to move at all. But we are obligated by the law to bring them before you again for a vote, because it wasn't voted on before, because they have met the minimum criteria in the law, and I feel like we are obligated, I think we're obligated legally to bring it back. I don't mean the board will approve it. The board can vote however board members want to vote, but at some point we need to bring it back on the agenda. That would either, I think, be August, or based on what I just said, if you feel like it'd be better to delay it a little bit. But I'm going to let y'all decide when you think would be best. I don't know why I'm still standing. My apologies. Know that our Glenwood folks are here. I think Christy and Scarlett. And so would it be okay after this? And then we'll let them. Yes, thank you. Okay. Yes, let's let y'all have it.
Absolutely. Thank you all so much for having us back. Again, I'm Dr. Jesse Kilgore, President and Founder of Hashtag Teach, and my colleague, Dr. Megan Brown, who is our National Director of Instruction for the program. So as the good doctor said, we did have our site visit. It went very, very well. So we were super pleased with the site visit. As you see in your handout, we have some bullet points there. That took place on April the 21st through the 23rd. We had about 175 pieces of evidence submitted, and most importantly, we met all of the CAPE standards. So we were delighted by that, and more importantly, we had no stipulations. So those of you that know about CAPE, you have stipulations, you have areas for improvement. Stipulations will allow you to get a 2-year accreditation with a visit again in 2 years. No stipulations allow you to move for a 7-year accreditation. So we're super delighted about that. We had 5 CAPE reviewers, interviewed a ton of people across the organization, current residents, program completers, the entire leadership team, instructional coaches, the school-based mentors. Numerous of our partner representatives participated. We had 8 district superintendents that were interviewed in the process, our advisory board member, our data consultants, our psychometrician, our admission counselors. So in total, there were about 75 interviews that took place during that time. And it really, really went well. I couldn't be more proud of the team. That was a 3-year endeavor to get to that point, going through CAPE phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, et cetera. So we're super delighted as to where we are in that CAPE process. So really looking forward to the CAPE board meeting in October, and we'll get the final nod there and be able to put this second logo that you see on there on our website. So we're super excited about it. So before I go to the next part, any questions about the CAPE part? I know that was an important piece for the board members.
Just congratulations on receiving your CAPE accreditation without any stipulations.
No stipulations, yes ma'am, thank you so much. So we'll do the kind of the core presentation. I know some members weren't here last time, so we wanted to go through that. So you see here our vision statement. Place students in their learning first. Throughout our work, we strive to cultivate in all students the desire and abilities to be critical thinkers, lifelong learners, and active participants in a democratic society, as well as our mission to drive exceptional outcomes for all students by developing great teachers and great schools. And that really is the core of our mission, right? That's what it's all about, developing great teachers to impact students in classrooms. It's not about money, it's not about any of those things. I always tell people we haven't raised our rates since 2018 from our inception. We've never raised our rates 1 cent, right? Because it's just not about that, right? It really is about the impact that we're going to have in classrooms in this state and the other states that we're in across the nation. I've been an educator in K-12 for over 35 years, and I've seen a ton during that time. And this teacher shortage is real. It is real, and it is having so much impact negatively on students across this nation. And we have to figure it out, and we want to be a part of that equation, right? We want to do our part to impact that structure across the nation here. In terms of our offerings, so our courses end up being about 15 to 33 college credit equivalents. Depending on which program you're in, if you're in elementary, secondary, P12, or special education, and they all fall into these buckets: child development and child psychology, family community relationships, diverse learners, instructional strategies, teaching methods, and special education. And we really have very targeted recruitment, both for our staff and for our candidate selection, right? For people that we're making sure they meet the GPA requirements, and we even have virtual interviews that we do with the candidates to really kind of see where they're at, because at the end of the day, when we sign off on these people, we're signing off saying, hey, this person is ready for the field, ready to have a positive impact on children, right? And we don't want anyone out there with our name behind them that aren't doing the job. So we take that responsibility very, very seriously. In terms of program benefits, it's a very cost-effective program. We have numerous payment options, monthly payments, no interest, loan options. We take advantage of every grant opportunity we can find. for our candidates. We work with a lot of district partnerships where we give the districts discount if they pay on behalf of the clients. So doing whatever we can to remove those barriers, right? Because that's really what alternative certification has been about, is removing barriers to get people into the classroom quickly with the support that they need, both at the school level and from the EPP program level. In terms of teaching principles, I will let Dr. Megan Brown take over from here.
Thank you. So our principles of teaching, they are the essence of what we do. And they are at the core of every classroom observation that we conduct, all of our coaching sessions. We really believe that we're preparing teachers to provide the best instructional practices to our children. And we always tell our teachers, it's not a cookie cutter approach. And so we focus on what does that individualized instruction look like. All of our residents have to submit lesson plans as a part of their program progression. They have multiple assignments where they do lesson plans. We have lesson plans embedded inside of our methods course. We have to see, can you put a unit plan together? So not just a one-day lesson, but what does it look like for the course of a 2-week span? Then we also talk about how do you make meaning of your content area. And so with our methods course, we also provide instruction around what does it mean to teach K-8? What does it mean to teach those individual subject areas? And then for secondary, we include those components specifically for English, science, math, social studies, arts, foreign language, and CTE. And when we do our classroom observations, those are done twice a year, once in the fall, once in the spring. And our coaches have a rubric that they follow for the classroom observation, grounded in our principles of teaching. And we do the observations, those are done virtually. And the benefit of having a virtual program is that we can find the absolute best instructional coaches across the country. And so when we do, as Dr. Kilgore said, our marketing and our recruitment, we are looking for individuals who have been in the classroom 15 plus years, who have been instructional coaches in their district. They've been administrators, many of them have been assistant superintendents or superintendents. A vast majority of our instructional coaches have terminal degrees. And so we really look for that high quality, not only for our residents, but also for our instructional coaches. And once again, the principles of teaching are embedded in everything that we do. With our program itself, we have over 60 content areas that we provide certification. And we do have additional pathways for individuals who may already have a teaching certificate and come back for an additional endorsement specific to our Michigan program. And with that, we're able to customize the work that they do. And so we offer a portfolio method for individuals who've been in the classroom for several years, and they may have artifacts from their teaching, their interaction with colleagues, their interaction with parents, that they can show as demonstration of what they've been able to do. Then we also provide special education certification, specifically in Michigan, around emotional impairment, cognitive impairment, physically and otherwise health impaired, and learning disabilities. And then we have partnership programs as well. So one of which is with Grand Valley State University, and that's an extension of our special education program. We have partnerships with Ashland University, where we're able to provide graduate credit for our residents. And then we also have a partnership with the University of Olivet in Michigan, where we have individuals who don't currently have a bachelor's degree, but desire to have a degree. And we work in tandem with the University of Olivet. They provide their gen ed courses, liberal arts courses, and they graduate with a degree in integrated studies. But along the way, they take half of our coursework. And so we infuse the education components during their junior and senior year. And so we have individuals specifically on our team who are assigned to that cohort, and they work with them. They have virtual meetings that they meet with, and then they also have a professor on campus that assists them with the field work. And so our teams meet every other week to have conversations around what does the support look like for that specific cohort. And we've noticed immense success with this particular partnership. And that's something that we continuously strive to do, is how can we be innovative in our approach? So yes, we started off with having our core areas of certification and our core courses, but then how can we expand to really meet the needs of the individual states that we work with? And then we also have free courses that we provide. That's another beauty of having online coursework, is that we can provide courses to the masses. And so one thing that came out of COVID was the need to provide additional support around what does it mean to teach in a virtual environment, and what does it mean to use technology in your classroom. So that is a course that we offer for free to any educator who would like to take that course, and we've embedded it into our core scope and sequence.
And it's important to note too, with that University of Olivet program, that degree completion, since that's an online program, we can use that for any person across the nation, right, including here, to do their degree completion if they so desire, taking half of our courses and then moving right into our program. The next slide, you see our certification areas. So obviously this will be a little different for the Alabama in terms of what we offer, but this gives you a good sense of the variety of things that we offer in terms of the elementary education areas, lower, upper, all of the language arts, speech, reading. We have library media certification that we offer, all of the sciences and the social studies areas, music, art, PE, health, agriculture ed, tech ed, all of the world languages, as well as all of the bilingual education areas. And you'll see that those courses are broken down into phases. So the phase 1 courses are what we call classroom readiness, and then phase 2 are the classroom excellence courses. So phase 1 are more for the early learning part of what you need to do as an educator, child development, parent relationships, lesson planning, etc. And then you get a little deeper when you get into the phase 2 courses in terms of elementary strategies, disaggregation of data, evaluation, building community, etc. And then you'll see that both for elementary, secondary, and PK-12. And of course, those courses, while similar in name, have a different focus in the actual coursework based on the grade band that the student is engaged in. We've also created a new early warning system. I'll let Dr. Brown explain that.
So with our early warning system, we want to make sure that our residents are not falling behind on their coursework. And so we've worked with our psychometrician and our data team to send out email warnings to individuals when they are falling behind on a 13-month scope and sequence. And they get the reminder every 3 months. And then once they get to that 12-month mark, if they have not aligned themselves in their coursework with the pacing, then they meet with our Director of Residencies and Relationships, and then we put together a customized plan for that individual so they can complete their coursework in a timely fashion. Our Director of Residencies and Relationships really is that person to kind of hold their hand to make sure that if they need support directly in the classroom, if they have extenuating circumstances going on with the health of a family member or themselves, or displacement, that they have someone that they can go to outside of their instructional coach to really provide that additional support. And we implemented the early warning system last year, and we're noticing just great success with how it is helping to keep our residents on track. Because with our residents, they are teaching full-time as well. And so sometimes it's that work-life balance, and the coursework just happens to be the thing that falls off of their radar. And so by having the early warning system, it reminds them that we're here, we are monitoring what it is that you're doing, but it's not from a punitive lens, it is from that restorative lens of what else can we do to help. So having that additional layer with the director helps them with the early warning system.
And for you techies, this was written using the Python language. And we connected it with an API to our CRM system, and it works amazingly. So we're really proud of the work with that system. You can continue with
okay. I mentioned our Director of Residencies and Relationships, and we also have our Transition Coordinator. So that is another position that we added. And this individual works with our residents during their last year in the program. So generally our program is a 3-year program. For the first year, our residents are taking their courses and they're doing their classroom observations while working. They have monthly check-ins with their instructional coach. The instructional coach stays with them for the 3-year span in the program. And once they get to year 3, there is a handoff to the transition coordinator. And the transition coordinator works directly with our certification team to ensure that all of the state requirements have been met so that they can then be a program completer. And so we wanted to make sure that we have multiple layers of checks and balances for all of our residents, in addition to the layers of support. So anytime our resident has a question, their instructional coach is their go-to person. That is the person that is scoring their coursework, the one that's doing their classroom observations, the one that's answering all of the important questions. But then when it's time for certification, we want to make sure that there is a support system and someone who can be your conduit to support with the certification team as well. Because sometimes our teachers don't know how to speak certification language and legalese, and so our transition coordinator is the one that serves as that guide in that process.
Yeah, absolutely. And in terms of those coaches, when they're checking that work, we do check for plagiarism. We check was this written by AI, right? We really take it serious. Like, don't come with any crap. We're looking very closely at it. All of the work is written at the master's level. So we're very, very serious about the work and the education that our residents are gaining in the program. In terms of admission to the program, of course, each state is different. We follow the admission standards of the state. But generally speaking, we look for a 3.0 GPA from a regionally accredited institution, right? So that's really important for us, making sure that they have CPR, first aid, those types of things, just making sure they're ready for the classroom in all ways. And we also have options for people who may have not done well in undergrad. So we have what's called a cohort GPA, where we'll look at the cohort and making sure that cohort average is still above a 3.0. We make them go through some additional hoops, some additional interviews, what happened, why was your GPA low, that kind of thing. And then work with them from the cohort GPA perspective. And that's pretty much how the program works currently. And I always end with this Rita Pearson's quote that I really love: every child deserves a champion, an adult will never give up on them, who understands the power of connection and insists that they become the best that they can possibly be. I remember hearing her at a presentation once, and I took that and stuck it up in my classroom, and it always meant so much to me. So we miss her dearly. She was a great contributor to the field of education. So at this point, any questions that you all have?
I have a couple. Okay. Yes, just for clarification, under the elementary part, phase 1, it says semester hours 185, and then phase 2 196. If you could clarify for me the difference in the two phases under elementary, that's my first question.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
So this is for a person coming in to get certification. All right. Now, I read earlier that normally there were 15, I think, to 33 college areas, so that doesn't deal with the hours. These are semester hours here. So in order to get elementary phase 1, which is readiness, I guess just beginning, I would have to complete 185 semester hours.
So those are actual hours. If you look at that real fine print right below it, you'll see 7.4 semester hours, and then we add that to the 7.84 semester hours. That's when you get the 15 from.
So it only takes how many hours total for an elementary program? If I'm in phase 1, is it 30 or 33? This is for a master's. I'm trying to understand, what is phase 1? Is it for a master's?
Oh, no. So,
or initial certification?
Yeah, this is for initial certification. That's exactly right.
Okay.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So depending on which area, it's anywhere between 15 to 30. Like SPED is 33 credit hours. Elementary is about 15 or so, right? And it just kind of depends on where you are. And that's just instruction. That's not including the classroom time, the observation time,
so what would be the total? What would be the total? If I'm coming in and I want initial certification in elementary education, including the coursework, I guess this is coursework that you're talking about. All right, I have to do classroom observations that are virtual. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right, and then do I have to complete an internship, which is student teaching? How is that done?
Right.
Can you describe for me? I think you're the person who does pedagogy.
Yes.
Can you describe for me how that would look?
So our residents do essentially on-the-job teaching. Once they receive their initial certification, they are able to then assume the responsibilities of a classroom teacher. And so our support that we provide is our monthly check-in. So that is an additional hour or so every month that they are working directly with their instructional coach. And then the classroom observations that take place twice a year. And then any additional time that they are required to have professional development with their districts, any after-school meetings that they may have, so any additional support that they receive directly from the districts, that is additional time that is separate from our program. But we support that and encourage them to do their professional development with their districts.
So that's during that 3-year period.
Yes,
So they get certified from you prior to getting out there for the on-the-job training.
correct.
Yeah. Well, and through the state, they get certified,
Right,
not
we
us.
recommend,
Right,
and
we
we
recommend.
follow the
But
guidelines.
that's not in line with the guidelines for, I know different states have different things, but in the state of Alabama, you are to go through, student teaching or internship prior to certification. But with your program, you're saying that they will, after 3 years of completing the coursework and the observations, you would recommend to the state certification, knowing that they're not going to complete the student teaching until they get out in the classroom. I'm just trying to understand.
Sure, no, so in every state, it's different, right? So we
Right.
follow whatever the state guidelines are, that's what we follow. So in Michigan, we do it this way. In Indiana, we do it a different way.
Okay, well, I'm describing for you
Yeah,
Alabama.
in Alabama, we would do it the Alabama way, absolutely. So if they
Okay.
had to do the internship first, then that's
Yes.
the way we would do it, right? In North
Okay.
Carolina, it's different. So
Okay.
we're just kind of typically describing the typical program, but we follow the state guidelines, whatever they are, in every state that we're in,
Okay.
without a doubt.
And I just want to know
Yeah,
because I'm an
absolutely.
elementary ed specialist
Yes,
at
ma'am.
college.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. Yeah, whatever the guidelines are, that's what we follow.
All right, okay.
So I'll give you an example for North Carolina. There is a field experience that is required. And so with that, I believe it's a 10-week field experience. The residents have to go through specific requirements
Mhm.
before they can then move forward to even receive their residency license. And then each year, they have to renew their residency license and meet specific requirements before they can move on year to year. And
Okay,
so
one last question. Observation hours. Those are done virtually. Describe for me how that would look.
So they meet with their instructional coach, and they review the lesson that they want to do for their observation.
This is virtual.
This is virtual.
Okay,
And then they have that virtual conversation. They submit their lesson plan, and then they have the conversation about the lesson plan, and we discuss, are there any particular areas where you are struggling? So if it's elementary, are you having difficulty transitioning to centers? Are you having difficulty meeting the needs of your English language learners or your students with IEP? So we have
okay, but this is
specific-
my first time. I hadn't even gotten to that point. I'm just starting.
So then, as the instructional coach,
Mm-hmm.
I work with you on your lesson plan to say these are some of the things that you may want to consider
Mm-hmm.
as you are delivering instruction. And so we have model lesson plans that we
Mhm.
can provide for individuals who've never been in the classroom before.
Okay, so then you would observe me teaching.
Teaching that said lesson. And they
Okay.
submit their video, it's a 20-minute video. They submit it, then we have a debrief afterwards. Our
Okay.
instructional coaches have the rubric where they score. We do the debrief, and then we set goals for the next time we need to do a classroom observation. So for some individuals who are new in the classroom, they may need multiple classroom observations. The minimum is 2, one in the fall and one in the spring. But if we're noticing that they are struggling in a particular area, or if they are not meeting their goals, then we can do multiple classroom observations with them.
Okay, but you will work with state people because observation from our standpoint is the student goes in and does just that, observe. They're not actually teaching at that point. So I think there might be some clarifications that you need to see going forward. So that we'll make sure that our students get everything they need to make sure that they are effective.
Absolutely. And I think that's one of the beauties of our program and why we've been successful in so many states is it's very flexible, right? We easily adapt to whatever the standards are in any state to make sure that we're following the letter of the law. We're very serious about that as well. You know, we don't want to get in trouble with we don't want to have to come back here and say we messed up, right? So we really take the law and the letter of the law very
Right.
seriously. So whatever their standards are, as approved by your state legislature and the State Board of Education, that's what we follow without question.
Thank you.
Ms. West.
Yes, I do have a couple of questions. I just want to go back kind of to the beginning. How many states are you practicing in currently?
We're in 4 states right now. So
4
we're in
states, right.
Michigan, North Carolina, Indiana, and Arizona.
Okay, perfect. And primarily the clients, you call them residents, that are with your firm or your company, where are they coming from predominantly? Are they sort of a traditional 18 to 22-year-old looking to go forward? Are they professionals looking to, just describe the majority of your clients, who are they?
Absolutely. So we've been fortunate enough to have a very good mix of people. So everything from recent graduates from college who didn't go into education but now want to be teachers. We have career changers, people who have been in other fields for many years, retired or moved out of that field and wanted to come into the field of education. We have current educators who are seeking additional endorsements to better serve their district, or to become more marketable, etc. So we really have a good mix of people. We've had engineers who've come to our program. We've had one particular person was a retired Army colonel, and he ended up getting 5 certifications in our program. So he's elated about being able to teach in the classroom. It's really a wide array of people that we attract into the program. A lot of people who have been substitutes, paraprofessionals, who have been in the education setting but just don't have the certification to follow. So we get a good number of those people. A lot of districts like to build from within because those people know the culture and the climate of those buildings. So they'll push a lot of those parapros and substitutes, et cetera, into either our fuller program or into our degree completion program to complete the studies.
And just to add to that, because we have such a wide array of individuals who are coming to our program, we have 2 different approaches. And so we have our gradual assumption model, and that's for individuals who have never been in the classroom before. And we pair them with a mentor teacher that they work with, and they do their classroom observation with them where they are strictly there to observe. They do mini lessons, and then it's that gradual release until they are able to actually teach a lesson. For some individuals, it is a semester. For some individuals, they need the entire school year. We don't rush that process because we want to make sure that they are comfortable in the classroom. And then we have our immediate assumption model, and that's for individuals who have been substitutes, paraprofessionals, that they understand how a classroom functions, they understand instructional practices, and then they're able to immediately take on the responsibilities of the classroom.
Follow up to that, so thank you, because that's important. Follow up to that, and I'm sure you've looked at Alabama, you've looked at the places in Alabama where we have shortages, where we have difficulties. Often that's in our small rural communities where it's very difficult to hire teachers. We have people on emergency certificate. And so I think about those places that are really in need and the possibility that you could assist those communities in a way that does, if I'm hearing you correctly, remote learning for those residents or clients while they're seeking their certification. That would flow through the department following all of our standards to get them there. Absolutely. Am I correct in hearing that? Okay. So that's the first piece that I think is important. We also have urban areas that quite frankly struggle because of the difficulties they see in the classroom with mental health and behavior. So one of the big complaints the board has received over the since COVID, but prior to that, is behavior in the classroom with our students. And so I quickly was scanning, and I feel like there were some courses in there that might address classroom management, but I would like to hear, do you embed classroom management and throughout your coursework? I really think that higher ed, personally, and this is just an outsider looking in, that higher ed is missing that piece throughout the curriculum in our EPPs. You know, it's a course or 2, but it's not an umbrella discussion that we're having. And so when our teacher candidates get into the classroom, they're completely dismayed by the behavior of students and then sometimes by the behavior of folks at home. So can you speak to me about how you educate your residents with regard to management in the classroom?
So with our classroom readiness, our phase 1 coursework, we start off with those planning essentials. We talk about how to manage behaviors in the classroom. We talk about how do you frame your classroom to be welcoming, and then how do you work with students when the behavior is less than stellar. Then we move throughout the coursework in how to engage with families, how to engage with community partners. Because a lot of times we can't do everything in the classroom. The school is not the end all be all. We have to reach out to our community partners to find out what other supports can we bring in. And so we move through that as we go through the phase 1 coursework. When we get to the phase 2 coursework, we talk about restorative practices. A lot of times teachers just have this idea of, this is what I said, this is it, this is what I mean. If it doesn't work, see the dean and that's over and done with. But how do you get to the core and at the heart of our kids? We know that coming after COVID and in just society in general, our kids have a lot of baggage that they are bringing to the classroom, and it manifests in different ways. So we teach our teachers how to then talk to your students to then be more supportive to them. How do you change your own frame of reference? How do you change the language that you are speaking to your students? So we go through various methods of classroom management to really build that relationship with our students. And we also do in our classroom observations, we have specific areas where we look for how are they engaging with their students, how are they using individual instruction for their students, how are they managing their classroom, how is the classroom set up to be welcoming and inviting. And so anything that we expose them to in coursework, we also look for in the assessment. So when we have those debrief conversations, we're able to say to them, you did a really good job at redirecting your students when this happened. Or you overlook the fact that maybe 3 of your students were asleep. How do we then engage the whole student? Or how do we redirect? And so anything that's in coursework, we follow up with that one-on-one conversation. And then we also have monthly meetings with our cohort of residents. So each coach has their own cohort that they work with for 3 years. And we have specific PD topics that we cover with them once a month. And so it could range from instructional practices, classroom management, engaging with families, anything that we're noticing as trends that they need to then implement in the classroom.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Madeline, do you have a question? I have a question. Can you submit possibly a proposed implementation plan of action that aligns specifically to Alabama? Because this one seems to be very general, but I would love to have some clarity on how what you're offering aligns with the requirements for Alabama.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of that is in the initial application that we submitted. So we can certainly push that back out and maybe put it in a different frame and send it back out. But we have addressed all of those in the application for APP status in Alabama.
And I may have missed it. I wasn't here when you all came
Yes,
before,
ma'am.
so.
Yeah, I can absolutely get that to you. Absolutely.
And we'll have, Dr. Hampton will be back,
Okay.
well, I was about to say next month, but before next month, and also has all that information, so we can share what we've got to.
And as we're putting that together, are there any specific areas that you would like for us to focus on?
Let me think about it. Thank you all so much.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate your time and the opportunity to come back to you. Thank you.
Thank y'all for coming. I think one of those clarification, we'll get this, but like in their typical program, as they mentioned, they have a K-5. As you know, in Alabama, we have a K-3 and a K-6. So I think that they've worked with Dr. Hampton to work all that out. But I think that, I'm going to put words in your mouth, is kind of what you're asking. How does this line up with what our code requires? But we'll work with them and make sure you get all that.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much.
Are the administrators from Glenwood present? We want to invite you all to come up.
Yes.
Y'all come up and have a seat. So while they come up, now Dr. Richardson knows them better, and well, Ms. Manning knows one of them a lot better. Christy Castleberry, who I mentioned as chief staff, is going to be the new CEO, and then it's Scarlett Thompson. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, Scarlett Thompson, who is their chief development officer, and I'll just leave it to y'all to talk, but we appreciate you very much. I know I threw this on, well, I'll say this. This is kind of last, I just created this. Thank you, Dr. Chestnut, for letting them come. But I felt like they traveled all the way down here. They served thousands of students across the state and families. And there might be some specific questions for them or specific things they'd want to share.
One comment I just want to make is that I applaud the efforts of Glenwood. They've been in existence for 50 years. As a superintendent, I really welcomed your services because we oftentimes didn't have services for our autistic children. To see that a program began with 16 students 50 years ago, and now they're serving over 8,000, close to 9,000 throughout, not just Alabama, throughout the nation, is really applaudable, and I appreciate that. Also, as a constituent with being in the Birmingham area, and also as a parent, I really applaud what you all do. I hate that Ken couldn't make it. He's been there many, many years. He said that he wanted the newcomers to come. So, looking forward to working with you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I guess I could just do a brief intro for Glenwood, and then we can entertain any questions that you may have associated with that. So Glenwood is a private nonprofit agency. We're multifaceted. We're very kind of complex, actually, but specific for this meeting, we have 2 schools on our campus. One school is Allen Cott School. It serves our children residentially with autism, and it serves approximately 15 students from local LEAs that come to Allen Cott School for education. We have another school that's Lakeview School, and it is specific to our Daniel House program, which is serving boys ages 6 to 14 who have severe emotional behavioral problems, typically associated with, unfortunately, severe trauma that has occurred in their life. So they're usually with us 1 year. Our Allen Cott students are usually with us. Oftentimes they come into Allen Cott and are educated through age 21. And if appropriate, if the family desires and if we have a bed available, we serve them through adult residential services. So our Allen Cott School, right now I would say we probably have 50 students being served educationally at Glenwood. And we recently opened up 2 new homes, one specific for children that are borderline intellectual disability and MI. Those students slip through the cracks often because they don't qualify for one thing, and they're yet they can't maintain anything in our local school system. So we're trying to work with a small population in that area to serve that through an opportunity we had with the Department of Mental Health. So I'll speak more specific to Allen Cott, the school that serves children with autism. It is highly organized and a presented curriculum that aligns with the State Department of Education, and we have specialized professionals that are specific for our children's needs, which include special ed teachers, the paraprofessionals that we call behavioral therapist, behavioral support therapist, and then we have ABAs, we have OTs, we have speech, we have a sensory room, fine motor skills opportunities, and training in a classroom that is adapted to a home. So they get specialized training just to try to make their life as best comfortable and productive as possible. And it is geared solely around what is best for the child or what is best for the student. And we take that approach in developing their IEPs and how we will roll out education for that individual.
Do we have any questions?
Thank you though for all
Thanks
you
for
do.
what you do.
Sure.
Thank you for your service
Thank you.
to the kids.
We appreciate the opportunity, and we're so happy to have the recognition of the board. We're very grateful. Thank you so much.
One question, Dr. Mackey, do we still offer grants for catastrophic
We do, yes ma'am.
funds to sometimes assist systems with that?
We do. We now have 2 such grant programs. We have the old catastrophic assistance program that's paid for out of federal IDEA funds, and then the legislatures allowed us to create and they funded a state fund too. So we still take care of those. Most of the students who would have to go to like Allen Cott, the state reimburses the district for that. And then we're able to even do some of the day students and other things now too. We've been able to build those funds up.
No, that was very beneficial
Yeah.
to us as superintendents.
Exactly.
Dr. Mackey, we're ready to move on to student assessment.
We will,
state
yes,
data,
ma'am.
Teacher bill of rights.
So I'm gonna let them pull up our PowerPoint now, and I'm gonna look at the, I guess it'd be the first one, the ACAP student assessment data. Kind of do like I did last week. That seemed to help some, for me at least. It may not have helped anybody else in the room, but it helped me to be able to point to the screen. And I think they're just gonna move it for me. So let's just go on to the next slide. Just to remind you that of all the assessments we give, we're going to talk for a few minutes about the ACAP summative 2 through 8. This one in here, and then the alternate, ACAP alternate. So those are the 2 tests I'm going to show you, but remind you that we do. There are several tests that we offer. Obviously, grades 2 through 12. So assessment. Let's look at the results. So here they are. There's lots of numbers there. So I'm going to point some of these out and then be glad to entertain questions. Maggie Hicks was coming to do this presentation. She was very worried about it. She's probably worried right now. She even offered to do it remotely, and I said, no, that's going to be really difficult. I think I can do it. But so these are, first look at our numbers of students who were tested. And I always think that's pretty interesting to look. We do have some grades that are slightly smaller than others. So in other words, we have about 4,000 more second graders than we do 4th and 5th graders. Obviously, a few students don't take the test, but for the most part, most students do take the test. We still average between 52 and 55,000 students per grade all the way through. That's been pretty close for a number of years. But as you know, the numbers are slightly dropping, the number of school-age children in the state. So I want to take you all the way over here to the end, and I'm going to take you back over there. So let's look at 2nd grade. These 2 columns. So this is what we call proficient. Remember proficient, the NAEP describes proficient as aspirational scoring. Remember the NAEP is very different, and we'll go into that again for a little bit. The NAEP has only 3 categories: proficient, basic, and below basic. We have 4 categories, so they're different. But our definition of proficient is level 3 and 4. So we basically would assume that 3 and 4 is like proficient on the NAEP, very similar, but obviously it's a different test given to a different population. Level 2 would be those students that I would think of as basic. Again, we don't label them as basic. And then level 1 would be our students who are below basic. And in the terms of the NAEP, we would think about that. So I want to show you this. So this is, we do math, English language arts, and science. Just to show you one of the measures that we look at though. Last month we looked at reading, right? So those who were below basic, or what we say, they're not on grade level. I know there's lots of different terms. We say they're not on grade level. We said 9% of 3rd graders, right? Well, if you can read, now this is not reading scores, this is English language arts, but if you can read, we add to that comprehension, spelling, some writing, and those kind of things. But you would think that reading and total English language arts would track very close, right? So 9% reading, what's the English language arts score? 10%. So they track very, very, very closely. Okay? Students who can read can also write and do those other things. They track very closely. Not all exactly the same students, nevertheless, but you'll see, again, we look at how do these numbers change from year to year. Okay, so the number that were in level 1, third grade, ELA, dropped. I'm on ELA, I hope. Yes, I think I am. Okay, dropped from 14% to 10%. So we saw that same kind of drop. Not as precipitous as what we'd had before last year, but we did see a little bit of a drop. Again, remember, reading is a subtest of this component. So all those reading questions are included in this, but this is a broader, it's more questions, it's more broad subject than just reading. But anyway, see how they track. Okay, so let's go over here to proficiency. So what do our numbers look like? Well, we had increases in every grade, which we're very happy about. We went second grade proficient, so that's levels 3 and 4A together. 54% to 59, 54 to 63, 54 to 59, 56 to 64, 51 to 54, 50 to 52, and 50 to 52. So we are above 50% in every grade, and we did better in every grade with proficiency in level or in English language arts. So I feel really good about that overall. Now remember, the next question's already been asked me this morning. When are we going to get the school level data? Well, the school level data won't be available until next month. The schools do have their data, but they are doing that cross verification right now. Will these numbers change? Probably not. So even if we have schools, and every year, well, not every year, but most years, that schools will find some glitch here or there that affects a student or two. But when you add, there are not enough glitches that it's going to really shift the state numbers. So these numbers are what they are. One of the things, again, as we look right here, this is obviously very important. Try to look at, you always want to move students fewer in level 2 and more in level 3. So again, we did see that for the most part. We saw from 23 to 24 fewer students in level 2 and more students in level 3, but that was not consistent necessarily. We did have fewer in level 2 all the way across the board, but not necessarily every grade. And then the other way to look at this, to make it slightly more confusing, is of course on the diagonal. So let's look at the students who were in the spring, let's just say second grade, 23, now they're third graders in 24. So you can look at, sorry, I shouldn't have changed grades, but they're from here to here. So how did those students do? Are we seeing more students? So here, this is good. We went from 17% of those second graders to only 10% of them being in level 1. But then look at this third to fourth. This one increased. We had those third graders, only 14% were in level 1. But at the end of fourth grade, that same group of students is at 19%. So that's a trend that we worry about. The others seem to have all gone down except for that one trend of those third graders and fourth graders. I point that out because remember that report I mentioned last month, those are the students, of course, who took the NAEP this past January, and those NAEP scores will be released in this December or January. So I mentioned to you that they were behind their peers that are third graders this year. Well, they also saw some regression from third grade to fourth grade. So we don't know what that'll look like overall. I'm not predicting bad test scores, but I'm telling you those are the kinds of things we have to think about. Those are the students we're talking about. Let's go on to the next one. We'll come back. Let me hit the others. Math, we had some weird trends in math. So from fourth grade down, we saw good trends. But really concerning here in second and third grade, we actually saw our numbers drop from 48% to 43 and from 44 to 43 in second and third grade. Now, I don't know why that is. That question, the why has been asked 1,000 times in this department in the last few days. I can't tell you why. Again, I go back to this is not an indictment of the work we're doing in math, because remember, the first math coaches weren't even deployed until this past year. And they weren't necessarily, they were only in certain schools, and we asked them to really focus on those 4th, 5th, and 6th graders. So it may be that some of them just didn't do this, they didn't focus in those areas, but again, they're not even in 20% of the schools yet. So it's not an indictment of that. I still feel good about where we're going with our math coaching, but there are two real disturbing trends here. To me, this is one of them. We don't want to see any regression. And the other one's down here. When you look at the number of, in level 4, the number of 7th and 8th graders in level 4 being in the single digits, that's very concerning. So it's telling us also that students are losing. They're pretty good at math, but they're not great in 3rd grade, and then they're getting a little further behind every year. By the time they get to middle school, we've got a small number of students who are really at the top end, and you add these two together, only about 20% of our students are truly proficient at the end of 8th grade, which is when they're going to go into Algebra 1, and that means they're going to struggle. These students, 55% of our kids, 8th graders, 55%, more than half, are in level 2. So they're basic. Again, use the NAEP term, they're basic. They're another term that's often used, partially proficient, but it means they've got gaps. That's what it tells me. They have gaps in their knowledge. And so when they go into Algebra 1, they are going to struggle. Doesn't mean they won't pass Algebra 1. Doesn't mean they can become engineers, but they're going to need some tutoring and extra support to get there because they've got gaps in their knowledge. Okay? A lot of reasons for that. We could opine about that all day. I've got plenty of ladies in this department, and men, but mostly ladies, who would love to come and opine about it later. But that's kind of where we are now. So let me go on to science. Let me kind of get through it, and then I'll let y'all think on it, and then we'll come back. So science, we only give, remember, in even years, 4th, 6th, and 8th grades, and then, of course, in high school with the ACT. Our science scores are generally always between the ELA and the math, and they are again this year. We saw a trend of no change, basically, in science. So you look at proficient, 41 to 43% in 4th grade, 30 to 30, 41 to 38, a little slight decrease there. But overall, what we saw in science is not much change from year to year. And so that's maybe not surprising. Obviously, we test science, but it is not, I don't want to say it's a subject we don't focus on, but in these earlier grades, the real focus is obviously on reading, English language arts, and mathematics, which are skills you need to do well in science. But we do test science, and I want you to be able to see those. Let's go to the next one. Just to remind you, the alternate assessment is only given to 1% of students. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on these, but we do test all of our students. These are students who have severe special needs, and only 1%. Let's go on to the next one. And we do that in ELA and math, and the next one also in science. So you have those to look at, but again, such a small population, I don't spend a lot of time on that. And then I think the next one is actually the kind of toward the end. This is our access for ELL. So when you see students exited, these are how many students tested out of English language programs or English language learning programs, became proficient enough in English that they are no longer considered, they're not EL students anymore. Now, it doesn't mean they've mastered everything about English, obviously, but they've tested out of the program so that we're not supporting them. So we are seeing students test out every year, but as you see, we obviously have a lot of students who don't test out too, who are continuing to need support from our EL specialists across the state. And this is a growing population. Look at this number. From 2021-22, we tested 37,000 students in the state. Remember, we have about, and I know the number changes because it depends on if we include pre-K and all kinds of things, but somewhere around 720,000 students. So about 5%, but you can see that number has grown, almost added 10,000 EL students in that 3-year period, and our student population has actually slightly declined during that period. So they're becoming a larger and larger part of our student population. Overall, it's still around, I think it's about 8%, but in some school districts, they're not evenly distributed. So in some school districts, this is 25 to 50% of the population. So it's a growing population, and it's a growing need, because as you see, the trend of students testing out is staying about 4 to 5%. It's not going up too fast. Doesn't mean, now, EL students means they're still in regular classes. They're still, still getting their math. They're still getting reading. They're still getting science. But these students are also getting other instructional services. Let's go to the next one. Let's see, ACT scores. Again, this is the proficiency. These are not new data. These are data you've seen before. But when we look at our junior class proficiency, again, you see pretty close trends. Science went up a little bit, but our other subjects went down a couple of points. But we're really not seeing a massive change. The average composite has gone up 1/10 of a point, which is actually pretty significant on that assessment. But in general, it's just really not changed. It's pretty static. Our ACT scores are pretty static. And we give it to about the same number of students. You see again, the numbers here hover around 50,000 students. It was lower in that 23 year, and I'm not exactly sure why that is. And then the next one, let's look on National Career Readiness Certificates. This is earned through our Work Keys program. So these are we consider students that are silver. We don't give certificate. Well, we don't give recognition for career readiness indicator for bronze, but we do for silver and above. And so you can see our numbers again, pretty steady. But we did had a little drop right here in our number of silver. Not every student has to take this. Okay, not every student has to take it. This is voluntary. Some of our districts, most of our districts try to get all of their seniors to take it. Some districts don't participate in it, but most of them do. Let's go to the next one. And the NAEP, of course, is coming out again. Was administered in January to March of this year, about 219 schools. We talked about this some this past year. It's going to be released in the winter of 25, 24, 25, somewhere in that. I've been told this is winter of 25, but I was told it could be in December 24. Most likely they'll be released in January 25. And another clarification from last month. I've said that they were considering going back to odd year administrations, but that has been put on ice right now. So the current, as Ms. Bell I think pointed out, the current plan is to stay on even year administrations. But there's a plan to change that, but right now it's stalled in Washington. So right now we're looking at giving it again in 26. And that'll won't be given in 25 because there's no time to make that change. That's 6 months away. But either in 26 or 27, we'll give the NAEP again to a small number, about 219 schools in 4th grade and 8th grade. Now let's go to the next one. I forgot what is next. So this is the long trend assessment. The NAEP gives other tests too. The only ones that ever get published in the paper are the 4th and 8th grade reading and math scores. But they give actually many assessments, and including what's called the long-term trend, which is given to 9-year-olds, 13-year-olds, and 17-year-olds. Yeah, and those we will have some schools that participate in those too. So 22 schools selected to participate in those. Those also get released, but the data don't really get looked at as much except by statisticians, but they look for long-term trends. The field test, as they're looking at moving toward a new kind of test, we have 131 schools that have been selected to participate in the field test, and that'll be in January of 25. And then the next one, let's see, I don't remember, that may be it. Okay, I thought we were getting pretty close. So let's go back, Charles or Ed, whoever's handling that, let's go back to that first slide and see if there are particular things y'all want to ask about. No, sorry, yeah, go on back to the let's see, ACAP summative math. Let's go back one more to reading. I probably said it wrong, or ELA. So ELA, math, and science, obviously these are the big numbers. Are there specific things y'all are thinking about you want to mention? Again, like I know Dr. Anderson wanted to come back today and just talk to you about math, but I said, you know, you got sessions, you got 3,000 teachers there wanting to hear from you. You talk to them, let us digest, and then in August, September, we want you to come talk to us about it, but let the board have some time to digest the numbers before we throw too much at it. Yes, ma'am.
On the third grade level, if we come all the way over to proficient level 3 and 4, from 54 to 63%, in your professional opinion, are you attributing that to the work of ARI, the folks we've got deployed in the field the last 2 years?
I think I would attribute almost all of that to the work of ARI, because they have focused so intensely on looking at the second grade exam and digging into that in the third grade year. That's what those coaches have spent so much time on. We've really, you know, it's kind of this is the hit or miss year. We got to make sure those students get what they need in third grade, and also the deployment of some practice tests for them. So remember that we have been, one of our goals was to build behind our ACAP test some practice tests for the teachers to be able to deploy. I say practice tests, they're really formative assessments that help them see where their students are, that are absolutely directly aligned to the ACAP, the same kinds of questions, the same format. And so I have heard, again, this is anecdotal data, but from a lot of schools that they really appreciated that made a big difference to get to be able to give a test that looks like the summative test and get those results back, and then let teachers get some feedback from that. So I would say between that test, pre-test kind of practice we deployed, and then the work of our reading coaches in ARI, letters training, all the work we've done in ARI is really what has made that happen. And I think we'll see that trend continues. We see the numbers going up in second grade too. You didn't ask this question, Mrs. West, but if I could opine on that, and even though these numbers are up in every grade, where I really worry is what the board was talking about a year ago, and that is these middle grades. For these students who are here, 20% of our students who are moving into 4th, 5th, and 6th grade, who are, I know it's not technically reading, but in ELA, who are not proficient and not basic. Those students are going to struggle when somebody puts a science book in front of them, or they put, they put hard questions, math questions. They have to try to read, the documents from the founding fathers. These are going to be really tough documents for them to digest if they are below basic down here. And so we've really got to talk about how do we support these middle school teachers who don't think of themselves as being reading teachers, because now they're teaching subjects, but they got students who are reading, who are not able to read the material.
But Dr. Mackey, I'm thinking the fact in the budget as a board that we started looking at monies to help those struggling students, that should help us
Yes, ma'am.
with that process.
It sure will.
But we just need to look at what's going to be done. The money is there, but the strategies and things that will be put in place.
I agree with what Dr. Richardson was saying, but it also further validates that we really need to emphasize the need to focus on grades 4 through 8
Right.
in the area of reading. Because we're seeing that the emphasis in the lower grades, we're seeing the results that we want, but once they get to 4th grade, and as you said, it's gonna impact not only ELA, but the science and all the other content areas, right? So, I know we earmarked, I think there was like 5 million earmarked, but that's
You
not
gotta go
going to
beyond.
accommodate or meet the needs of these numbers.
Exactly. But it's a
Okay.
beginning.
It is a beginning.
Rather than maybe ask for more money in those grades, is it possible to ask for a change in the law expanding the ability of ARI to go into those other grades?
Would be, so that would, so, yes, both of those are things we should look at, I think. So the budget, there's language in the budget that says that, the reading coaches paid for the ARI funds can only work with teachers in those lower grades. I'm not saying that exactly right, but in grades up to 3rd grade. So one is to look at that budget language, so that if I have a reading coach, can that reading coach work? I know we want them primarily, we don't want to lose the work that's going on down here, but
Right.
can they at least work with some 4th and 5th grade teachers? Can we get more money to deploy to extra reading coaches in those middle school? And it's a different, teaching reading in middle school is a little
It
different.
is.
And then we could look back even at the Literacy Act and see if there are changes that we would recommend. So I think all of those are.
It just seems like common sense to me that if you're the level 1 and level 2 and you're gonna progress, that the teacher that had you in 2nd and 3rd grade, that 4th, 5th grade, and 6th grade teacher may need some additional coaching about those students.
Yeah.
Because those lower grade teachers have already observed their weaknesses and they're documented in their assessments. And so it makes no sense to me that they wouldn't be collaborating together to support those 1 and 2s. I mean, I realize that translates into dollars in order to do that, but it seems like a very natural, common sense thing to do. It's like in paired schools, to me, some districts have paired schools where you have a K2 and a 3-5 where they're paired, but the 2 principals work together so that the 2nd grade teachers, as those students move out of 2nd grade and into that 3rd grade building, that 3-5, that they're working together to help those students transition to their new building, new set of standards, all new curriculum. I mean, it just, it seems like a very common sense way to spend our money.
Well, you were talking about expanding the services of ARI, and maybe an initial step would be to give them an opportunity to set it up where they can provide some support to the 4th grade teachers as we transition and get what we really want to accomplish, and that is to provide coaches in the 4th through 8th grades. But right now, could we possibly have some exception, especially in the critical area schools that have a high population of students that are challenged? Could those coaches extend their services just in grade 4 for the upcoming year?
And one of the things we will do here, so the $5 million that, I know you asked for, I think 22, but we got $5 million to start their middle level reading project, or struggling readers beyond grade 3, calling it. So we are putting that work in ARI. Here at the State Department, we're embedding it in the reading initiative. The requirement that they can't work above grade 3 is actually on the local schools, not on the department. So we're gonna embed that middle school work in ARI, but it's that, the issue there is that those K-3 reading coaches are not supposed to be working in 4, 5, and 6. Now, nobody's going out and cutting anybody's money if there's some overlap there, I can assure you, but at the same time, we don't want to stretch them too thin. So we're talking, Ms. Short's working on right now, well, she already had some plans, so we're deploying plans for how we help those schools get their own folks. Some of them want to hire reading coaches or interventionists. So remember, the difference is a reading coach works with adults. A reading interventionist works with students directly. And a lot of them, I'm hearing, and not everybody, but these students here, they're saying it's not just so much coaching the teachers. Yes, we need some help with that, but we need to be able to pull these students out with a dedicated reading interventionist to help catch them up. And so that you're seeing more of that, requests for that too.
Remind me, I know Ms. Royster's not here, but do our 4th grade teachers in Power School have access to the data about the students in their classroom from 1st through 3, from 1 K through?
I think the answer is yes to that.
So they
I'll
can,
check and make sure, but
so
they should be able
Power
to go back.
School
Yes.
allows them to see those deficiencies when they get them in 4th grade, so they could address that would also be an additional resource. Okay.
That's the Insights program that she talked about, some time back. But yes, it's kind of a dashboard so they can see all
Exactly.
information about the students.
Okay.
And it's not just the current year.
I would love to hear ARI's suggestion for providing support for the 4th grade decline.
Okay.
Can we get them to share?
And that's what I was saying, strategies even for teachers, even if you don't have the interventionists,
Right,
that they could train
right.
those that are there in those schools. So
Any other questions?
Of course, I remind you, I'll sit back down. These are statewide data. Just like with the reading data, when you see individual district and school data, you're going to see you're going to see that these numbers, of course, are not evenly distributed. Just want to always caution us about that, because we may see certain schools, we will see certain schools where we have much higher proficiency numbers and much lower proficiency numbers when we get those school level reports. Okay, I'm not sure. Teacher Bill of Rights. I don't think there's a slideshow on that. So if you want to look at your model, policy, and then the attachment. There's 2 attachments in there. So one is a resolution to adopt the other attachment. So the resolution would only be, it's just a method for us to do this, okay? So you don't really have to focus on that. It basically says, because the legislature has said to do this, we would here adopt the model policy attached. So the model policy, Tina Hammonds over there may have to help me with this. She's done a great job working on this. We've got input from the school board attorneys, and they have, so we had a draft, shared it with school board attorneys, and I think some others have had input, and so this is the draft that comes to you. It has everybody's input. It tracks very closely with the law itself. It is way long, much longer than I would ever want a policy to be at 5 pages, but that's because it tracks with the law and what the law requires. Yes.
If you don't mind, I especially want to point out Hannah Loftus is one of our new attorneys. She's also helped on this policy as well. And also special thanks to all of our school board attorneys when we went to our meeting, and especially Melissa McKee, also Jane Hara Williams,
And Chris
also
Payne.
was very helpful.
And Chris Pate.
Chris Pate was very helpful, and I would mention all of it, those especially. And obviously, we tracked the law and we made sure that everything was included in the law. But the school boards have each individual district has an opportunity to adopt their own version. They don't have to use our version, but we definitely wanted to provide flexibility with covering all the points that were included in the law. And this one is a little different because normally it's just kind of done through the department, but this one is actually through the board adoption process, so it's a little bit protracted. So we would love to have gotten it, quicker, but like I said, we want to make sure that we have plenty of feedback from our colleagues at with the school boards.
And I don't know, I know it's a lot to digest. Y'all have only had a few days to look at it. I don't know much that can be changed. Like if I don't know how you change much to it, because if you do much fiddling with it, you're going to be out of compliance with what the legislature passed. Now, as Mr. Swan pointed out, locals don't have to adopt the policy, so it's unusual. In my time, we've never had a legislation passed that said for the board to pass a model policy, but then locals are not required to use the board's model policy. So it's a bit unusual. But one of the reasons we're bringing it now is because the bill is this bill in effect? It went into effect June 1st. And so the districts are in a bit of a panic because the bill is in effect the first day of school. Most of them, their rulemaking procedures don't allow them to pass a policy that fast, and they're still waiting on the model policy. So I think they all probably have a draft, or their attorneys have a draft, so that they know what you're seeing, just because we're trying to help them get ahead of it. But anyway, I'll answer questions about it. I would ask that if the board's comfortable with it, we go ahead and put it on the August agenda, because if we delay it any further, see, the locals are waiting on us to get a model policy. Some of them don't want to consider their own policy until the state board adopts the model, which means they can't consider it until September. Then most of them have a 30-day of the comment period, so they're not going to be able to go pass policies until the end of the fall, but the law is already in effect. So it's a bit of it's a little unusual.
Knowing other board members not being here, they may not be comfortable. Do you think that it would be good for us to possibly send hard copies to the board members that aren't present today and request maybe Dr. Chestnut that they reach out to the chief of staff or Dr. Mackey right away with any questions? I would hate for us to not approve something that the legislature has already put into place.
I agree. I think we need to move forward because it is already in effect, and the suggestion of asking them if they have questions definitely would be in order. So
Do you
we can
also
move forward.
think that our EPPs need to be, they may not even, some of them may not even be aware that this is law now, and if they're preparing teachers to go into the classroom, it might be helpful for them to have a hard copy should we pass this. Obviously, it's already law,
Right.
but once the board passes this, so that their teacher candidates going into the classroom this fall would be made aware that there's a change.
I could see this being very beneficial, especially for the person that's teaching classroom management. You know, where you're encouraging
And that's what I was
new
about to say.
teachers to follow the code of conduct, and may not
and
be
the ethics
aware.
and all of that.
Right.
That's-
So you're absolutely right.
Okay. We'll move on both of those.
Well, the scary thing is whether a school system goes ahead and adopts something similar to this or not, the law still
It
applies.
still applies.
And it's good to have your own policy so that you know that procedurally you are moving the way you should move.
And the main thing that model policy sets out is the process of the appeals. So just remember the very short explanation is that there are 5 reasons for which a teacher can exclude a student. And then the principal does what, or assistant principal does what they would normally do. But in this case, if the teacher disagrees with what the principal's done, the teacher has a right to appeal. And so basically what they've laid out is the process of what that appeal looks like. In absence of that, I've talked to several superintendents who are planning on just using their regular teacher grievance policy as the kind of method of appeal. But this is a little more specific. So I think they're all interested in it. And then the other thing is the key to all of this is the classroom discipline management plan, because the key is that nothing matters if the classroom management plan is not implemented. That is not we don't have a model classroom management plan. That's left to each principal in the state to design, develop, implement. Okay.
Any other questions?
So the Teacher Bill of Rights, the other one's the Tyrell Spencer Act. Again, thanks to our legal folks for doing all this work. I'm not even sure, Tina and Jason, and I guess Laura, others, I don't know who all has been involved in this. They bring it to me, and Tina has been the one explaining it to me. So there's a current act. This actually is following up on an act from 2023, the beginning of which, but one of the things that the training is already ongoing, so let me just say that. This is training in cardiac arrest and cardiac response for primarily coaches. The training is already in place. But beginning this year, there's a second little provision that says the board is to adopt guidelines, and there's an information sheet and the training. What we are recommending through the resolution is that you adopt the training that the High School Athletic Association is already using, which is provided through the National Federation of State High School Associations. So that's the national group that all the high school athletic associations are part of. So this is coach training that's already approved and already being done. So my recommendation to you, our recommendation would be that you approve the training they're already doing. Anything else is going to create chaos, because they're already requiring all the coaches to have the training, and they're already doing the training. It also applies, this also, by the way, applies to all the private schools. So you see also in there, not just High School Athletic Association, but the Alabama Independent School Association. This is, again, one of the few times we're being asked to oversee rules for the independent schools in the state. But these do apply to them too. And then the guidelines and information sheets you'll see are on there. This is a really good, very positive thing, I think, for our folks to be doing that.
Any other questions?
Okay, I'll keep moving. Now we really will kind of move fast. The administrative code, every year we have to change if there's a teacher pay raise, and then there is a teacher pay raise, and otherwise the only changes are the dates. It says that it changes from one fiscal year to the next fiscal year. But last year there were some changes in here too, because remember the legislature went and made some more substantial changes to the funding through the foundation program. But this year it's just moving from one year to the next and the 2% pay raise. You have, just to point out to you that things look a little different. I'm just pointing that out. They will always look different now, because the legislative, LFO, what are they? Is it LFO? LSA, yeah, Legislative Services has gone to a new system for keeping up with the administrative code. So it looks different to all of us. And it's looked the same for 25 years, and now it looks different. But so when you see it, it's going to look a little different. And then that'll change. All of our code changes going forward to look that way. Tina has taken over all of that work and is doing a great job keeping up with it. But if you look at it and think, this is not the way it used to look, no, it's not. It's on a different font, it's different headings, the pages are not numbered, which makes it a little bit confusing, maybe, but the reason is because those pages have to fit in other pages, and so when it's all passed, then they'll numerate it. But in the meantime, it's a little different. And then the Career Tech, this goes back, this is similar to what we did last month, or you just voted on this morning. It's a change in the Human Services course of study for Career Tech. You'll see it's a very minimal change. And then there's an attachment with it, just like it was last month. It's a very, very small change, but it has to do with AEDs and CPR. So that's a theme for today. And then September will be, believe it or not, we're talking about September because when we vote in August, September will be upcoming Attendance Awareness Month in the schools. And Dr. Chestnut, that completes it for me. Now, I know I went through those last ones fast, and I can answer any questions. I do want to remind you all, though, that we'll have the retreat coming up. I know Ms. Manning's been communicating with you about the retreat, the place, and the rooms, and all that. But that'll be coming up. When we meet, all of that will be set and in place. When we meet in August, pretty much that'll all be set. So just remember that's coming.
She's prepared.
I'm prepared to say a couple of things. We will be staying in Anniston at the Finial, Finial. I have not reserved, but I have placed on hold some rooms. So if you want to go ahead, call there and get your reservation. They do not charge your card until you check in. So you can go ahead and get your reservation. If they tell you that the number of rooms that I set aside have already been used, just remind them that they said they would add rooms to it as needed. We have several things that we're looking at. I don't think the agenda will matter right now, but the other thing is I will need to know how many of you will be coming and how many of you will be having dinner that night. We'll be going down the street for dinner at Classics.
What's the dates? The dates again, I'm sorry.
27th and 28th of August. I think I've talked to most everybody, but if there is something that you want to put on the agenda, let me know and we'll get that incorporated into it.
Thank you so much. Did I understand you to say you don't have any other updates?
I don't. No, ma'am. Not unless there's any questions. I really don't.
Any other questions? If not, the work session is adjourned.
We have a very good warm lunch upstairs, and everybody gets 2 rounds of it. So.
Oh, good. That's great. I didn't have any breakfast, so I'm happy.
Right. This was one I just didn't, I like them. I just didn't know this is a good discussion.